I learned this as a young refugee. I think most of America are rooting for us. I think when you're an underdog, then your first feeling is the world's against us. It's like the underdog in sports, right? It's us against the world. We're going to
Totally.
shock the world. Now, most Americans are supportive of you. Hey, welcome to Warrior Money, the show devoted to supporting our brothers through veterans. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze.
This week, we have a phenomenal show. We're going to talk about from the battlefield to the boardroom, what it is like to start a small business. But we also have a phenomenal Marine pilot who started his own business, was in the pharmaceutical industry, and then became an author. But more on that later. Let's get to it. Dan, bottom line up front, what are the skills needed that soldiers have to start a small business?
Patrick, you look great in a tie. You look so good in a tie. what do veterans need to do? The first thing they need to do is actually know how to execute a business, like run a business. And more importantly, like what is your business actually going to do? Like what problem are you going to solve? So I think that's the question, right? It's like what problem for what person, for what organization are you going to solve? And like, I want to start a business. I want to go work in a business. But at the end of the day, you got to figure out what it is that you're actually what problem you're going to solve, or what gets you out of bed in the morning to go do. I think that's the starting place. We often don't think about like business as a nebulous term, like this blah, blah, blah. But it's really at the end of the day, solving somebody else's problem. And you say that pretty well. It's just kind of getting into it and doing it.
Yeah, listen, you and I both start businesses. We own a business together. You look at America right now, there's over 33 million small businesses out there. But the reality of it is, for folks out there, it might look sexy from the outside, but most will not make it 5 years.
No.
Most will not make it. But veterans are more likely to make it. When I look at that, it's also, as you mentioned, what pain are you solving? What are you selling? And are people, customers going to buy it? But just the beginning of becoming an entrepreneur, sometimes, you're a founder, you have an idea to do it. But other times you can become an entrepreneur through acquisition and be a kind of the operating economy or an operator economy.
Yeah, everybody thinks that they need to go be a technologist or something, like they're going to have to do something. But people still have to put up fences. People still have to mow lawns. People still have to do work, and they still have to do trucking, and they've got to still do things that move things from one place to the other. And in this whole like age of artificial intelligence where we're all worried about the jobs that are going to get taken away, and there will be jobs that are taken away. Like the things that aren't going to go away, I don't think, and I haven't figured out how they're going to do this yet, are the jobs that do the day-to-day like last mile services and delivery. Like, so if you're thinking about, if you're an enlisted soldier or you're trying to figure out what you're going to do, like maybe you should transfer in your first job in business, doing something with your hands that lets you kind of replicate your military experience and go do that in the civilian side. And whether it's being a mechanic or mowing lawns, like there's no shame in putting a good day's work in, because all of a sudden that stuff starts to snowball on itself over time.
Yeah, and then doing something on the side.
Or like Patrick, you could be the security guard in the 700 section of the Veteran Stadium, and then all of a sudden your life kind of cascades from there.
Yeah, that was the toughest duty, by the way. Being a security guard for the Philadelphia Eagles was tougher duty than the invasion of Iraq. We lost 19 guys in our unit, but
it's definitely colder.
That was. And by the way, I got my first battlefield promotion. I stopped a supervisor from getting his head kicked in as a security guard. But
yeah.
What I look at, when you look at the 33.5 million small businesses across America, the majority are owned, or 40% are owned or run by baby boomers. So when you look at that, a lot of them are about to retire, and the majority of small businesses, they don't have a succession plan. So Dan, remember we had Patrick Flood on, Owners in Honor about a month ago, talking about, hey, we're helping folks get in because a lot of veterans want to go back to their home of record, but the majority of them don't. So are you seeing some of that, ownership through acquisition happening out there, or we'd say entrepreneurship through acquisition?
Yeah, the first thing you got to look for is a good product or a good service or a book of business, right? So like, do you have customers or do you have a good product? Kind of what you got to look at. And I know you and I have talked about this before, like you're baby boomer, you're getting ready to close to retirement, you don't have a succession, you keep working past 60, 65, 70, you're like, what do I do? What do I do now? I don't have somebody to succeed this to. a private equity firm doesn't want to buy me for what I think this is worth. So like I'm kind of stuck in this whole situation. We're seeing, actually last week I had a conversation with somebody in Westchester, Pennsylvania about this exact same problem. And they're just trying to figure out how to find somebody to step into the business to help him succeed and retire. Like that's all he's looking to do. And that's a perfect opportunity, I think, to put a little sweat equity, do a little earn out over time, or some sort of acquisition using the SBA loan. Those are the sorts of things that I think we need to be creative about and talking about to the veteran community as well. Like you've already earned education credentials. You've already earned VA credentials. Why not use the SBA to buy out a business? And there's just a lot of different opportunities to go do that. But at the core of it is like, do you have a book of business? Because that's the hardest part to get. And do you have a good product? Because that's the other hardest part to get. And if you can get those two things started, or you inherit something that's already started, that's a way better starting place than trying to start from zero, because starting from zero is really hard.
Yeah, yeah, and I think part of that is that folks say, "Hey, I want to be a small business owner. I want to be an entrepreneur." Okay, but that doesn't mean
Until your clients don't pay.
And you're gonna be sitting behind some desk someday. You know,
Yeah.
we've been doing this show for over a year. I mean, even the Marine who was a T-Mobile CEO that they were bought out USA Cellular, but even he said, I had to get out there. I had to go out to the field. I had to see what was going on. But some of those fundamental principles of, yeah, you might not be doing obviously sales in the military, but you are communicating and you're inspiring people. I mean, the whole point of leadership is inspiring people to do something they otherwise wouldn't do. You wouldn't otherwise be a salesman, sell goods, sell products, sell services. But if that is your job, that's what you have to do. You have to do the hard job. And, what we say, embrace the suck of that.
Yeah, actually, I kind of like selling, so I don't think it's sucky at all. I think I enjoy doing that quite a bit. I think the suck of it is when things don't go the right way. I think that's the part where you and I are like, we have to. That's the conversation, right? Like you're gonna get into this, and your first job might not work, your second job might not work, the first thing might not work, the second thing might not work. You just keep doing the things until you finally get to a place where you're okay. And that I think in my mind means that you've taken care of, and we talked about this in previous episodes, like you've taken care of your four walls, so you're not living out over your skis. You're in some sort of community or relationship that grounds you and where you need to be. And your work can be work. It doesn't have to be everything, all encompassing, because it's really, I think, important to have outlets beyond just judging your worth by what you make and how you do your work. So I think I agree with you on everything. I like selling. If I had to do operations all day long, I probably wouldn't like that quite as much as I like selling and give it to an operations person. So like that's where I found my peace and my space at. And I think you just got to find your peace and space over time.
Yeah, and I would say, part of it is in business, it's like the military. You're dealing with people all the time, and people bring problems, their own set skill sets, and you don't necessarily have the 6-month support form or the NCOER or the OER. You don't have you have to be able to either create that or use the systems in place to effectuate change, to drive them to do better, to have more sales, to be more efficient, not to waste money.
And you've also said this a million times, and I agree with it. You've got to meet more people. So like if you're an introvert, you got to figure out a way to navigate your introversion to go do it. If you're an extrovert, be extroverted, but be intentional about it. I don't know a lot of people that have succeeded by themselves without having to talk to anybody else. And I think what we're talking about is how do you become successful, and how did I become successful? I started becoming when I had my first paper out, and I was forced to meet people because they were my customers when I had my paper out. And then those customers became my landscaping customers, and then those landscaping customers became the next thing. But I didn't get started until I started meeting somebody. And at the end of the day, it's like, thank you actually for teeing this one up, because I wrote a Substack about it a couple weeks ago. Like the work happens between people. I wasn't planning that, but it worked. It happens between people. It doesn't happen like on strategy decks. It doesn't happen because you wish it to happen. You got to engage and get in the mix with people. Like that's just what you got to go do.
Yeah, and you subscribe that your network is your net worth, and using social media, using LinkedIn, using it for a force of good, but also you can't just live behind a keyboard. You can't be a keyboard warrior. It's good, get in, get out, put stuff out there, but you got to meet people one-on-one. You got to meet people in person. We tell people whether they're transitioning out for the first time or looking to move up in the corporate world, we tell them, hey, listen, get a mentor, get someone that you aspire to be, ask them to meet for coffee or a meal, and ask them to do it in person. Don't just ask for a Zoom. And if you get a Zoom, get a Zoom. If you can't get a Zoom, get a call. But just don't, just don't settle. Get a hustle and get out there and meet more people and be deliberate. And frankly, you got to plan your work and then work your plan. And that's
Yeah.
what I think a lot of folks, they think it's just going to come. You got to be aggressive and just get after it.
Yeah, and I also don't think there's anything wrong with bootstrapping your way through the early years. Like a lot of people want to take other people's money or capital. I want to know that I have a business that has traction first before I accept somebody else's risk as well, somebody else's pressure, frankly. And the way that I would do that again is by starting some pilots or some prototypes and asking people if they want to buy what I'm selling. And or even like, hey, would you buy what I'm selling? And then get them to give me $1. Just prove to me that this is worth something for you. And I think that's also kind of part of this broader journey is how do you get started? If you're going to take funding, I really hope you take funding for something that already has an idea, that actually has some traction. But if you're not going to take funding, it's totally fine to be gradual about it. And at the lowest level, you've got to solve somebody else's problem. Like whether it's putting up their Christmas lights, because people pay for that now. Like putting up Christmas lights. Like you meet one person putting up a Christmas light that likes your work ethic. All of a sudden you're in some other room because that person's he can afford to put up his Christmas lights. So you're in some executive's office someday anyway. So like it's just a matter of meeting more people. And then the other part, I've stolen this from Patrick. I give my phone number out all the time now. Like I have I used to feel like a little weird about that, but like I just give my number out now. If you want to be weird to me, like I'm just gonna block you. But like nobody's ever weird, and people just reach out, and then all of a sudden you hear from somebody 6 months later. You probably don't even know who they are anymore, and all of a sudden they're in your phone and you chat with them about something.
Yeah. Listen, I think, under the guise of your network is your net worth. When I meet them, I put them in my contacts, but I also say, I went to this college, or this is their wife's name, or how many kids they have, just, so I can remember, when I'm talking to them again. I think when it relates, when people are listening, whether they're private first class right now or 5 years out of the military, the reality of it is those entrepreneurial skills that entrepreneurs utilize every day building a business are the scheme skills basically you had in the military. But, the corporate America wants to hire you not because it's a charity, because you'll kick ass for them, but also, you're more likely to be successful in a small business, but it is not for everybody. And don't worry about it. There is books about it. There's things like Bunker Labs, which is part of the Institute for Veterans and Military Families. There are folks out there in all the major cities for mentorship to get after it, if that's what you choose to do. But Dan, I got to tell you, I'm pumped. We have a Marine pilot, call signal Q, Quang Pham. He has a phenomenal book, Underdog Nation. He's going to be joining us for War Money just after this break.
Looking forward to it.
All right, welcome back to War Money. It's Patrick Murphy and Dan Kunze. We have a phenomenal author, Marine, combat veteran, Quang Pham. We call him Q. That was his call sign in the Marine Corps. He is an entrepreneur, an author, and just a great American. Q, thanks so much for joining us on Warrior Money.
Patrick, Dan, great to be with you here near the Marine Corps' 250th birthday and Veterans Day 2025.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. And the Marine Corps was founded in the great city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, PA, in Tunn's Tavern. So not a shocker.
Right
But we start off every interview with bluff, bottom line up front. You're an entrepreneur. What were the skills that you learned as a Marine pilot that you took as an entrepreneur, and what could other veterans relate to?
As a second lieutenant, every Marine is a rifleman at the basic skill they taught us to make a decision, right or wrong, make a decision and go forward. That's number one. Number two is assess risk and move forward or move back, move sideways, but assess risk all the time. There's no 100% certainty. The biggest takeaway for me transition-wise was when I got to Merck after the Marine Corps was be proud of your service, but remember, you're part of a new organization. Okay, so you can't run around yelling "oorah" because they'll tell you if you love it so much, why did you leave? And so a lot of veterans are too much oorah at the beginning of that transition, including myself.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really, really great. Hey, when you were in the Marine Corps, you were a helicopter pilot. You did some interesting interesting missions both in Iraq and in Somalia. Can you tell us a little bit about what your military experience looked like and how you got your commission?
Yeah, I was I was a refugee kid from Vietnam. Came out during the evacuation. Had dreams of being a pilot, like my late father, South Vietnamese pilot. That didn't happen. 10 years later, I got a citizenship, and I felt like I owed the country. The Vietnam War was long, it was bloody, controversial, but I felt I owed the country a payback for my citizenship. So I went into the OCS program on platoon leaders class, and was given a commission. Went to the basic school and got it winged. And immediately after I got winged, I got trained. Desert Shield kicked off. I went over late in 1990 and flew a cell support mission in a very brief war. Desert Storm was very brief, but got to Kuwait City, did a medevac for the 1st Marine Division, came home. A year later, came out USS Tarawa, went back to the Gulf, and then into Mogadishu just for a few weeks in October 1992 during the peacekeeping mission and the famine food relief effort.
That's cool. That's good.
Kitty, that's awesome. Hey, we know congratulations on your Los Angeles Dodgers. Dan and I are in the Philadelphia area, so you broke our heart in the beginning of the playoffs, but congrats. It was a hell of a World Series.
Yeah, we know.
But let's talk about your transition, right? Obviously, Marine Corps OCS pilot, but every year there's 200,000 veterans and military spouses that transition out every year and become veterans. What was your transition like, and what were some of the lessons learned from your perspective?
Yeah. First of all, I think as an officer, I think our transitions was easier. Okay, corporate America, we're looking for young officers, lieutenants, captains to join. The ranks, salesmen, logistics, operations. I think for the troops, the young, corporal sergeants, I think they have the toughest time. Really, no benefits. Just a transition period, maybe some services at the VA, and boom, they're back in college or back in their hometown. So I think let's focus on that. We can do a better job of helping young veterans transition, those without benefits, those who require medical services, and those who require education. I think the focus should be on the young troops.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I was going to ask you a whole lot more about your corporate experience. We were going to try to go down that path.
Sure.
That so nicely aligns the Underdog Nation. That's impossible for me not to kind of bring that up. So Underdog Nation, the idea that it doesn't necessarily matter where you start, it's resilience, grit, all your sort of background and efforts can accumulate into amazing success, right? How do you see that transition happens for young service members, and what are the skills from Underdog Nation that can apply to them?
Well, I think, first of all, I think there is this, I learned this as a young refugee. I think most of America are rooting for us. I think when you're an underdog, then your first feeling is the world's against us. It's like the underdog in sports, right? It's us against the world. We're going to shock the world. Now, most Americans are supportive of you. There are a handful of haters, maybe dozens or hundreds, but they want you to succeed. Okay. They love underdog, but you got to win. You got to put in the effort and result. What I talk about is the ER. Not the emergency room, but you got to put in the effort, the right effort to get the results. So I think young Americans coming out of the military, be proud of your service. Okay. Give it all you got. I think you're wearing the veteran badge. There aren't many of us out there, right? It's less than 1% serving these days. So the eyeballs are on you. Okay.
Yeah.
What are they talking about? What did you learn in combat, and how can you help us grow our top line, be more profitable, customer service? It's a hard transition, but I think you have to go in it to be a part of a new team. In a way, you have to shed that military skin, okay? Unless you go to defense contractor where 100% are veterans. If you're going to a place like pharmaceutical, Wall Street, there are hardly any. So you have to adapt, get over that transition period, be proud of your service, and be part of the new team and bring the new skill set to the table.
Yeah. One of the Pat, one more thing, because you said one thing in there that I think was really great. You said the right effort, like you apply the right effort to a priority, and then you listed in the last of that conversation like sales, marketing, product management, program management, those sorts of things, right? How do you think a transitioning service member should find what those right efforts are based on the experience that they've had? Like how do you differentiate the right effort from like busyness or energy expended?
I think, I think as service members in general, we're risk taker, right? We know as young men and women, we could be deployed. But I think financially, job, I think we're more conservative in general. So I think making the right bet, and I think a lot of service members that have come out and contact me over the years, they focus so much on that first job when they get out. It's either make it or break it. I mean, they're either, retired sergeant major or a retired lieutenant colonel. They think they're going to step into this thing. But I tell them, focus on where you want to live and spend some time with your family. You've been deployed and you've traveled all over the world, okay? Once you are living where you want to live, things kind of fall into place. Because if you are, working in Seattle and your family's in Virginia, it's like being deployed, right? You can go to work for Microsoft, but if all your family's on the East Coast, it's like being deployed.
Yeah.
So figure out where you want to live. And so the first job, I think, is a lot of pressure. My first job didn't turn out the way I envisioned it. It was the second and third job. So I try to tell them, be patient. Don't be so hard on yourself with that first job after the military.
Yeah, I think that's what people understand. Like, listen, it's not like the military. We have to give a 3-year commitment. Now, listen, we don't want you to go job to job, right? But if it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit. And you mentioned, you were proud that you were, a Vietnamese refugee, and you feel like you had to earn your citizenship here in America. People forget that our military has been founded by immigrants since the Revolutionary War, frankly, right? And so, what did that give you like a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, meaning that you had to prove yourself? And was that like a net positive, or how did your family take it?
Yeah.
Most people that were more diverse than the rest of America, those who were the cloth of our country.
Well, I joined the Marines at a very interesting time, right? It was the mid-'80s. It was 10 years after the Vietnam War. A lot of the divisiveness, bitterness, and it was a time when all those Hollywood movies came out. And that created perception. It's the Rambo, Full Metal Jacket,
That's right.
Platoon. So when I went to officer candidate school, all my classmates saw those movies. So that was their impression of the Vietnam War. But I had a father who was the South Vietnamese ally that you both served. You have, Iraqi allies, Afghani allies. My father served and went to prison for 12 years after the fall of Saigon. And there was the perception that the South Vietnamese were inept and they didn't do their part. So that was more of a chip on the shoulder than the being a minority, right? Because I knew the Japanese Americans served in World War II and proved themselves. And the African Americans eventually did great things, right? In World War II, in Korea. So it was more the portrayal of the South Vietnamese and my late father. That was more the chip. And I think a few years in, all that went away because our new enemy now was focused on the Middle East and not fighting, all the war problems were all Vietnam focused until 1990. Then everything shifted to another part of the world.
Yeah, just like the Dodgers, you are no longer an underdog, though, because of the the very successful business career you've had. Can you talk?
One thing. Hey, Ohtani speaks English now, right? After he won the second World Series.
He's the best English speaker in the world.
Exactly. No more interpreters.
No more. For a lot of reasons. That's a whole different conversation.
Hey, so 8 years in America.
Hey, so you just said that it's not the first job or the second job, it's the third job, and it seems like all your jobs have done pretty damn well in. Can you talk a little bit about your career progression out of the military and then how you eventually got to kind of a successful IPO? What did that look like?
Yeah, so when I left the military, the pharmaceutical industry was really growing. And, the myth was there was a senior vice president of human resource at Pfizer, and he loved young officers. He hired so many young Marine captain, lieutenant, they call it Semper Pfizer. Okay, that was a myth. I never went to Pfizer, but I was at the other company, Merck. But I think thousands of us were hired. So I think for young officers to transition, obviously, there were more opportunities. But I think I made a decision that I didn't want to be in a military environment. I wanted to prove myself where there were no defense contractor, military. Not that I didn't enjoy it. I just wanted to go somewhere where I could just start over without that background. And it was the pharmaceutical biotech industry. So 5 years, finished off at Genentech, which then and now is one of the top biotech companies in the world. And it was around 1999 when that .com era came around. And I took a risk. I used my savings. I wrote this business plan called mydrugrip.com. And next thing I know, I raised about $14 million. And I never raised funding before. I didn't have a Harvard or Stanford MBA. I didn't know any venture capitalists. I was just a young Marine
going and doing.
I just go do it. I went out and pitched it. I think we got funded like 3 months later. And now the Marine experience, being a top biotech sales rep and doing a pharmaceutical.com online business all made sense, and it was aligned. And that kickstarted my entrepreneur career.
That's awesome. Hey,
Fundraising, starting companies. Yeah.
one question. Merck, were you in Jersey or Pennsylvania? Where did you work someplace across the U.S.? Where were you for Merck?
Yeah, I was in field sales in Southern California. So I was with a joint venture of Merck and Astra called Astra Merck. And at that time, they had this drug, you may have heard of it, Prilosec, the purple pill.
Yeah, I heard of that.
It became a huge GI, proton pump inhibitor blockbuster. So, I joined an organization with a great product already. So I was trained by the corporate of how to sell, how to present, how to speak to physicians. And so all of those skills transferred into raising money to do an online pharmaceutical database marketing company. And so I think back then I didn't know what I was going to do. And I would tell young veterans, right? There are skills you're going to learn that's going to stay with you. One is always be ready when your number's called. Number two is speaking. Okay. You learn how to brief, a 9-line. You learn how to brief a flight. You learn how to brief in front of your platoon. Hone it. Okay. And know how to work a PowerPoint, Excel. You don't have to be expert at it, but yeah, you got to be able to present it and tell the story. And don't take 2 hours like a general officer. Okay. People only give you a few minutes. That's it.
Yep. How about as far as this is we say in Army, you have to shoot, move, and communicate, right? So you communicate. I mean, think about what you did to be able to publish a book, as an author. What advice, because these are viewers, some of them were like, man, I would love to write a book today. Like, what was that process like and why did you do it?
So Underdog Nation, my second book, is more business motivational effort results. 20 years ago, I wrote a book called A Sense of Duty, Our Journey from Vietnam in 2005 on the 30th anniversary of the Vietnam War ending. And Random House published that. And once again, first time author, English was my third language after French and Vietnamese. Some of the rejections were, your story is great, but your writing is like your military, too stiff. So after about 25 rejections, one day I got a call. I was playing golf, I was in between jobs writing a book. No acceptance. And Merck, Random House called my agent and said, hey, we want to talk to Quang. I think, we like to publish the book. And then I sat down and wrote it. So veterans have great stories. There are thousands of books now because of the wars the last 25 years. I think I would advise any veteran to write your story. But if you want the mass to read it, make sure you tell certain parts of your story that hasn't been told before and try to find a unique angle. And my unique angle was a father and son. One was allied United States. The son was a U.S. Marine Corps, reuniting after 17 years. And that angle caught the attention, obviously, after the dozens of rejections.
Yeah.
Well, that Underdog Nation, you've lived your life, Q, doing exactly that. And we appreciate you, not just your service to the Marine Corps, but your continued service for our brother and sister veterans and our communities out there. Thank you so much for joining us on Warrior Money today.
It's my distinct honor to be here, and just want to wish all the veterans a happy Veterans Day 2025.
Thanks, Q.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.